of what they've been able to do over the last year and a half. But I'd mentioned these revenues generally. So prior to COVID hitting January of 2020, the general revenue estimated for the state of Florida for 2020-2021 fiscal year was $34.4 billion. COVID hits, international travel stops, domestic travel really ground to a halt. As a tourism state, that really was a big deal. So in August of 2020, the people that estimate revenue in Florida, they dropped the estimate of revenue from $34.4 billion to $30.9 billion. And they were forecasting really difficult economic circumstance. And then what happened, the actual collections, as reported in August of 21 for that fiscal year, was not the $30.9 billion that they revised downward due to COVID. It wasn't even the $34.4 billion pre-COVID estimate. It was $36.2 billion in terms of the revenue that came in. And again, we don't have an income tax in Florida. We will never, as long as I'm governor. We have the lowest per capita tax burden, and yet big increase in revenue. We've also led the country in business formations. And when you think about it, we're the third largest state, but we are way more than California, which is the biggest state by far. And we saw 114,000 more business formations. 2021, we actually increased business formations by 61% compared to 2019, the first year I was governor. And so I think you see a lot of the momentum. And so why are we here today? Well, we're here today to be able to announce that Florida's visitation once again topped pre-pandemic levels in the fourth quarter of 2021. Florida had 30.9 million visitors from October through December, higher than 2019 pre-COVID outright, and up nearly 60% from the same period in 2020. This is the second consecutive quarter that we had more visitors in Florida than the same time period in 2019 pre-COVID. And so you have Americans throughout our country, I think, have recognized it's a pain to travel internationally now. I mean, who wants to be stuck in a foreign country because you get some positive COVID test, which may be COVID that you had a month ago, but there's still dead virus or something. You're not even sick or infectious, and you could be stranded in a foreign country. I mean, people don't want to deal with that hassle. But then if you're looking to travel domestically, who wants to travel to some place where you want to go get a hamburger and you have to show your medical papers, or they force you to wear masks, or they force you to do all these things? And so in Florida, we don't do that. You know, it's a free state. You can make your own decisions about what you want or not do, but we're not doing passports. We're not doing mandates, and we're not doing any restrictions. And so people know when they come here, they can actually have a vacation. Why would you want to go someplace to vacation and then have someone hound you about your medical papers or about your mask or all these other things? So you make those decisions for yourself in the state of Florida. And it's not just other fellow Americans. We had, in the last quarter, 3 times as many Canadians come as was in the fourth quarter of 2020, because you see what's happening. There's huge restrictions, huge mandates, and so people, the snowbirds, have sought refuge in Florida. Some of them, of course, own property here, but many are also just visiting as tourists, and so you see that all about. In fact, in 2020, December, January 2021, we had a lot of Canadian snowbirds that have property here. They got vaccine in Florida because they couldn't get it in Canada. So we're continuing to see that, and I think you're going to probably see that more and more. Dana Young has pointed this out, but when is it, the last quarter or the last year with New York?
Just found out in the last quarter.
Okay. So in the last quarter, we actually surpassed New York for international travels coming. So they're coming to Florida more than New York. And New York had been number one for like 20 years, and probably most even before that. And so we were able to do that. And again, I think it's because the experience, people know they're going to be able to come here, they're going to be treated with respect, and their personal decisions are going to be respected. I'm also proud to announce that in 2021, we had the most domestic visitation in the history of our state. 118 million visitors from across the nation came to the state of Florida. And amongst those visitors, I just have to point out, you have governors that have locked down their states, imposed mandates, imposed restrictions. You have big city mayors that have imposed lockdown policies. You have people on TV news networks that advocate for restrictions and lockdowns, and almost all of them have been criticizing Florida for a year and a half. And yet many of them are part of our visitation figures coming down to Florida. You find them on the beach, you find them somewhere else at some resort, all the while they're treating their own people very poorly and criticizing us for treating people with respect and protecting their freedoms. So yes, there are a lot of those lockdown politicians that are reflected in the 118 million visitors from across the nation. But look, you know, people vote with their feet, so they can say one thing, but what they do is often more important than what they say. Our state now, because of all these numbers, we have the highest hotel revenues ever in the history of Florida, $17.3 billion in 2021 in hotel revenues. Total passengers at Florida's 19 airports grew by 80% compared to 2020. I think it would grow more if Biden would get rid of the mask mandate on these airplanes. I mean, how ridiculous is it? They force you to wear a mask, but if you put the mask under your chin and you sip on water for 2 hours, then somehow it's fine and that's okay. It's irrational what they're doing with the mask mandate, but I know there are definitely people who just don't want to go through the hassle of having to be accosted about masks. So they should absolutely reverse the mask mandate, federal mask mandate on air travel. People have sued on it. Nobody's been successful. I think it's an irrational policy at this point, and hopefully they'll be able to. And how they treat these young children by forcing these 2-year-olds, you know, as a parent of young kids, it's hard to keep, particularly on a flight. You know, you have my daughter's going to be 2 in about a month and a half. It's hard to make sure that the kids behave as it is. You have to force a mask on them. Give me a break. I mean, it doesn't even work. So hopefully they'll take away the federal mask mandate. Although I'll tell you, I could see this just persisting indefinitely. I guess you'll have to wait till January 2025 to finally get rid of it. But it's going to be gone one way or another. The number of hotel room nights sold in 2021 in Florida was up almost 50%. Vis-a-vis 2020. The demand for vacation rentals, which many people in Northwest Florida understand, is at an all-time high. You know, my wife and I have actually thought about, hey, let's go to 30A. We can't find a place that's open on 30A. I mean, so it's really difficult to do. And vacation rental occupancy compared to 2019 pre-COVID is up almost 30% in 2021. And I'll tell you, this part of the state is driving that. And I mentioned foreign travel, but according to the National Travel and Tourism Office, 30.3% of overseas visitors to the U.S. went to Florida in 2020, which was an increase of almost 7 percentage points compared to 2019. And of course, the first time our market share of overseas travelers overtook New York, which I think they've been number one since 2001, was this year. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved. You know, I want to thank a lot of these local officials for making their community a place where people want to come and want to be. And this used to be a little bit more of a secret here in this part of the state. Not really anymore. I mean, people are beating down the doors to be able to get here, many to buy homes here, but others just to be able to vacation here. But we do appreciate everything that you all have done, and we're going to continue carrying the torch. I also want to thank Dana Young from Visit Florida for working really hard to promote, we live in an era where you have, New York-based corporate media outlets that basically propagate false narratives, partisan narratives every day. That's pretty much all they do. And so their whole narratives have been how bad Florida is. I mean, they've tried to do that for years. We made sure Visit Florida, we're getting the word out. But I think people instinctively realize, that these are not trustworthy outlets, and they basically ignored them and instead were were beating down the doors to get down here. So we're happy about that, and we want to thank Dana for what she's been able to do. So okay, well, we're here. We're going to hear from some folks who've been involved in this. So we have Collier Merrill, who's going to talk a little bit more about what they're doing here. We have Chairman Ponder from the County Commission. We have Jennifer Adams from the local tourism, and then Dana Young from the state of Florida tourism. So Collier, you want to come up?
So thank you, Governor. On behalf of my brother Will Merrill, is the president of Gulfarium, and Patrick Madden and Patrick Berry and his team here at the Gulfarium, thanks for everything y'all have done for the last 2 years. But a real life example of what the governor's talking about. So just about 2 years ago in a week, I took my son, who's a fourth grader in his class, to Tallahassee. We met with the governor, taking pictures, and he'd just done the first press conference on COVID. No big deal. Maybe it's coming around. And then the world kind of changed. And so May 14th, March 14th, 20th, we had to close. Now, one thing, we own some restaurants and stuff in Pensacola. You can shutter those up. Here we've got 10 dolphins. We've got sea lions and porpoises. We've got hundreds of animals in here. You can't shutter up. So what do? Every day is the same staff coming in here, the same veterinarians, the same staff taking care of the animals. 20,000 a day, every day, whether there's a soul in here or not. What did the governor do? He let us open back up on May 15th. California was still closed for almost another year. If we had stayed closed the way California was, we wouldn't be here right now. We operate on a shoestring in this environment. We love the tourists and really love the tourists, Dana, but we wouldn't be here. Just the money we made from May and our fiscal year into September was over $3 million was pure profit. If you look at it that way, because we're already here, maybe a ticket taker, variable cost. We couldn't have done it. So then you start October 1st, 2020, and we just finished our fiscal year, the best year we've had in 65 years. Best year in 65 years. Why California was still closed until April of 21. So half of our fiscal year that we had the best we've ever had, over 340,000 people came through here. It was up 40%. Was because we were open. If we had been in California, there's no doubt we would not be here today. And so we had our best year ever this past, and we look for going forward in the future. We just kicked off. I had to force my brother to docu-sign the loan document for $24 million. We're doing a big expansion to the north here. We've got the turtles we're rehabbing that we Fish and Wildlife we rescue all the time. A lot's going on here, and this facility will remain open as we do this big expansion. But again, on behalf of the Gulfarium and the whole Panhandle, Governor, thank you for what you did and keeping businesses open.
Sure. Okay, Mel.
I think we'll all attest here that if you can't find a unit on 30A, we'll find you one in Okaloosa County. So we're always honored to have you close by. Those had the great honor of serving our area and local government for a number of years, and I've seen firsthand the powerful impacts that tourism has, not only us as an economy, but us as each of us as individuals. I want to thank you, Governor, for your amazing leadership in this area. Although you've worked relentlessly to diversify our economy, you've stayed steadfast in promoting and standing by tourism as a leading economic driver for our state. For we all know, tourism community here at home is quite broad and is made up of an amazing family of those who serve on the front porch to welcome our guests as they arrive, to offer them encounters while they're here and experiences that they talk about when they go home. You've heard many places say, come to our beautiful place and have a family experience. But I've often said, come to our shores and experience family. There's something different here. It's a culture of honor and service that our hospitality industry is known for. So to me, it's not just about getting them to leave with sand in their shoes. To me, it's about getting them to leave with sand in their souls. Because when they go back home, I want it to be this place that they talk about from their experience and their encounter, that I don't know what they're doing in Florida, and especially Northwest Florida and Okaloosa County, but I've got to get back. For hospitality is not something we do as we treat our guests that come from other areas and other states, but it's really how we treat each other. So Governor DeSantis and Dana, you stated clearly many times the importance of tourism, and of course this industry is led by many amazing individuals, teams, and companies. Those raised here, those who visited and decided to make their home here. Many started hit as a vacation stop, later came back and opened a business. Even transitioning military that would be based here, they would leave and say, I'm coming back to this area to raise my family. It's a great honor to work alongside these partners, and their dedication to our local communities and welcoming visitors is part of what makes our destination so special. While these past 2 years, as Collier talked about, have presented a unique set of challenges, I want to thank you, Governor, because I remember where we were, that Ken Wampler and many others on the phone, Jennifer, relentlessly saying, please, it's a big deal to us. Our vacation rentals were served with excellence and be clean. And it was Governor DeSantis that released the call and said, we're opening you back up. And the business began and life began to flow back into our economy. So thank you for being a great fan of Northwest Florida. But also of great importance is the great opportunity we have every day to offer our guests an experience, helping kids and families be the best they can be, getting them out on the water, to offer them an encounter, perhaps even a new skill, any of which becomes the catalyst to launch dreams and purposes and destinies in their lives as they go back home. So Governor DeSantis, we thank you, we honor you, and we welcome you here today with your visit. Thank you for supporting tourism. Thank you for supporting one of the many lifelines here in Destin, Fort Walton Beach, and throughout the state of Florida. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I remember back in March of 2020, all of a sudden, like Disney and these parks close. And I'm like, man. And then it's like, okay, well, what's going to happen? So I was like, well, we need to get you guys back open. And we worked on many parks. I think Disney was the last. But we had a lot of them in Orlando. They got back in May. They didn't want to do April, but they were willing to do May, and then Disney later. But yeah, a lot of these other states, they had parks closed for a full year. And I don't know how you can really make that work when you have it. So yeah, we're glad that we were able to get everyone up and running, because you need to do it. You got to continue to go with these jobs and give people an opportunity to live life. Okay, Jennifer Adams, Tourist Development Director, Okaloosa County.
We'll also put you on a charter, too, if you come here. So how about that? So as Governor DeSantis said, we did have a record year with tourist development tax revenues, 74% over 2020, but really that 41% over 2019. It's really important to know that how significant those revenues are, because they do more than just marketing this wonderful place. We restore our beaches. We clean the beaches. We clean the parks. We pay for public safety. And it's very important that those numbers are strong and good and continue to grow. And we thank you for that. One thing that you did for us, Governor DeSantis, is you made our partnerships better. As Commissioner Ponder said, we were on the phone every day almost. And as a team, a lot of these partners, we were ready when you would say we were open. In addition to the tourist development tax revenues, we decided to focus on visitor spend. Our goal was a 10% spend. We exceeded 30%, and that brought in $736 million above and beyond the tourist development tax revenue, which was $184 million more than we had projected. And that went directly back into our restaurants, our fleet, our shops, our guides, and we are very, very blessed for that. As a result of this growth, we've been able to introduce new products and innovations in collaborations with our partners, such as the Gulfarium. One way we've accomplished this is by introducing families to our Little Adventures, which are new bite-sized challenges that make it easy to help moms get their kids outside and make childhood an adventure again. Little Adventures has stimulated local businesses by helping them create new products and experiences for both our local and visiting families. Looking ahead, the future of tourism is very bright here in Destin, Fort Walton Beach. Our projections for 2020 are pacing well ahead of those record-setting numbers. Governor DeSantis, we thank you for that. We are truly humbled that you have been a champion of tourism, our livelihood, and we're very humbled, and also with the continued support and collaboration and partnership that we have with Visit Florida. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I mean, Jennifer brings up a good point about like when people come, the restaurants. Most of these other states, these restaurants, a lot of them went out of business. It was very difficult. A lot of them aren't even allowed. I mean, they can't even serve who they want. Like if you have to have a shot record to even be able to sit down in some of these places, and so it's totally bizarre. And so here in Florida, they've been able to do very well, and I think a lot of restaurants have actually never done better than they've done over the last year or so. And so we're proud of that because, I mean, one, there's a lot of important people that work in those industries. These are good jobs. These are good folks. I don't think that and I know there's no government, but I don't think any of these resorts or restaurants should be making these servers wear masks. I go to these things. They don't want to wear them. I'll speak to a group. There'll be 500 people at a dinner, and I'll speak, and nobody is wearing a mask, and I don't think they should. But then they make the wait staff wear masks during that time period. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, why? What does that do? If they want to do it for themselves, then fine. I mean, I think people should have that freedom. But in many cases, they're being forced to do it by the properties. And so, I'd hate to say, like, I mean, maybe we need like a workers' bill of rights on some of this stuff, just to let people breathe freely when they're working. Because I think it's theater. I don't think it's really serving a purpose. Not when you have 500 other people cavorting, and then you're going to impose this on 12 people who are working hard to serve. So I really hope we can just get beyond that. I think many restaurants have gotten beyond it. I think some hotels have, but I'll tell you, I've been to some places and they're very appreciative of being in Florida that they're able to work. But I'll always say to them, well, when are they going to liberate you from the mask? And they're all like, we don't know, but they're all waiting for it. So any of these big companies that are running these hotels or resorts, liberate your employees from forced masking requirements. But we are proud that we've been able to keep this industry, not only keep them afloat, I mean, they're thriving like they've never before. People are bringing restaurants to Florida because they couldn't operate effectively in other parts of the country. Some really incredible restaurants. And then the restaurants that we've had here before COVID, most of these are family businesses. Most of these they run on tight margins. It's not an easy industry to succeed in. And having Fauci type policies, Fauci, he would criticize Florida for having restaurants open all of summer of 2020, saying you shouldn't do it. He was acting like this is the worst thing ever. But I'll tell you, what he was really advocating for was the destruction of the livelihoods of tens of thousands of people in our state. And we stood by to protect those livelihoods because somebody that is on the wait staff or somebody that's a chef or somebody that's tending bar, you see them there, but then you don't know when they go home, they have kids, they have mouths to feed, they have families to support. And to just say that they shouldn't be able to work, that was unacceptable in Florida. And so we made sure we stood by those folks. And now you have these folks doing very well, really across the board in our state. And so we're proud of it. I mean, our hospitality industry is a bedrock part of our state, not just the restaurants, the hotels, everything that goes into it, but the employees are really hardworking people. And so we want to stand by them, protecting their jobs, but obviously advocating for them to be able to go to work without having to cover their face all day. Okay, Dana Young, Visit Florida.
Thank you, Governor. And I do indeed have sand in my shoes right now, and that is a wonderful thing here on this beautiful, beautiful beach. And Governor, I just thank you so much for being here today. It is a proud moment for me to be here with you to celebrate the tremendous, overwhelming success of Florida's #1 industry, which is tourism. The fact that we had record domestic tourism in 2021 is mind-blowing. The fact that I love talking about this, that we've beat out New York as the #1 destination for international travelers is amazing. And the fact that in the fourth quarter of 2021, when you include international visitors, which there were quite a bit fewer, we still beat 2019 numbers. So we are killing it here in Florida. Our tourism industry is thriving. And this did not happen by accident. There were two things that created this. The first, and frankly the most important, was the leadership of our governor. Had Governor DeSantis Had Governor DeSantis not had the strength of will and conviction to keep our state open through massive criticism and continued news media attention in the negative way, we would not be here today. And number two is the ability that the governor gave Visit Florida to actively and aggressively and unapologetically market our state to the United States and to the rest of the world. And by doing that, we have gotten people here in our state of Florida that have never been here before. We've moved them into parts of the state that have never been visited by many people before. And some of our rural counties, Governor, have done better in 2021 than they have ever done. Oh! That was a flyover. It was perfect timing on that flyover. But so it's not just the big cities and the urban centers, but it's also our rural counties and our natural experiences that are being discovered by the world. And we're just so grateful to be here. And I'll just tell you, we don't make predictions at Visit Florida, but with these domestic numbers, once our international visitors are able to get back here, look out, because Florida is going to continue to dominate the country in visitation. And I think the operative word, you've said it many times, is freedom. People are wanting freedom, and they find it here in Florida. Thank you, Governor.
And it's true. I mean, I think, Northwest Florida, because you see the beautiful beaches. I mean, people do understand that now more than ever. And like I said, people have been flocking to Northwest Florida over the last 2 years in particular. But you also have some of the more rural areas that maybe not have the coastline. I was in Wakulla County recently, met all these people that had come down from Wisconsin or Minnesota or New York in Wakulla, which is very beautiful. And so you are seeing that really across the board. And Dana pointed out, everything we did to protect people's freedoms, everything we did to protect people's livelihoods and jobs and businesses and our kids' education, we face huge pushback on that from corporate press, from political opponents, all this stuff every step of the way. But, my job as a leader is to accept all that in order to be able to stand up for the people that I represent. And so that's what we did every day. I cared more about their livelihoods, their freedoms, their jobs, and their businesses than I did about getting any negative attention heaped on me. That just comes with the territory. I mean, you understand how this game works, but that was not going to deter me for 1 second for standing up for folks and making sure that they had the ability to earn a living and live as free people in a free state. And so the result is that these numbers are spectacular. I think we're going to have a great 2022. I am very concerned. I mean, you just saw some additional inflation data come out today. Huge inflation because of these policies that we're seeing out of Washington, where they think they can just keep printing trillions of dollars and that somehow you're never going to have any consequence for that. Well, I think we're seeing that there's consequence. And when they did that massive stimulus in March, people were warning Biden. Democrat economists were warning him, you are going to fuel inflation. And that's exactly what happened. So now you have a situation where they say consumer inflation 7.5%. I can tell you it's much higher than 7.5%. How much has gas gone up? How much have groceries gone up? How much have different staples of building and construction and all that gone up? It's all gone up way more than 7.5%. So yeah, as they calculate 7.5%, they're including things that really aren't making much of an impact. They're not including things that have gone up dramatically. And so that inflation is really, really significant, and it eats away at people's incomes. People commute, have to pay more and more for gas. They released the petroleum reserve, strategic reserve. It didn't make a dent. I mean, I think gas now just hit another domestic record over the last however many years. And so the policies out of Washington are hurting the country. Florida, we fought back against Biden on a whole variety of things. I mean, if it were up to Biden, we would have had tens of thousands of people lose their jobs because of these mandates. We stepped in, called a special session. We protected nurses and cops and firefighters. and people working in the private sector because it was the right thing to do. Yes, they shortchanged Florida on all this. They cut our medication, so we went out and got more in the summer. That's helped a lot of people with the monoclonal antibody treatment. I mean, I see people every day who were able to get that in Florida, and they said I wouldn't have been able to get that if it were another state. So we've been able to fight back against it. We're going to continue to do it. I think we're going to have a good legislative session. But the fact is, this inflation has really been a self-inflicted wound because of a lot of these federal policies. And had they been more responsible and a little more prudent, we may not be in the situation that we're in right now. So our message is they need to reverse course. They need to embrace better policies because I don't think people are going to be able to handle 7-8% inflation indefinitely. And I think you're going to see it. Now, what we've done in Florida to try to combat it is two things. One, we're working to give a gas tax rebate or gas tax holiday for folks who are suffering under high fuel prices, which will make a difference. It'll be about 25 cents a gallon. And we're working with the legislature on that. But we've also stepped up on our ports, and we're now taking more of these ships that had been stranded off these coasts. And so a lot of the traffic is up 10-15% at some of our key ports. So we're going to continue to do that to help alleviate a lot of the burdens on the supply chain. But a lot of those burdens were inflicted through bad policies that have been done over the last year and a half. You also have more need to have people with jobs inside the supply chain like truck drivers. So we've done a huge expansion of commercial driver's license. We were in Northwest Florida. When were we here when we did that announcement? Were you guys here with us? Yeah, a couple months ago. But we've not only done it here, we've done it in Northeast Florida and in Central Florida, a whole bunch of places, because we need those folks that are going to be able to participate in the economy. People take for granted truck drivers. They take for granted people working at our ports. They take for granted all these things that without which the entire economy kind of just grounds to a halt. So we're supporting those efforts. We have made a difference, but we're one state of many. So, but that inflation is really hurting a lot of people, and it didn't have to be. But nevertheless, we find ourselves here. We're proud of being a place people can come to. And we're proud of what we've been able to do over the last couple years. And I can tell you, those tourism numbers, this part of the state, Northwest Florida, has been a huge engine of all the success we've had. So my hat's off to everyone in the local community here. All right, take a couple questions. Yes, sir.
Many people in Northwest Florida saw their utility bills jump hundreds of dollars after Gulf Power merged with Florida Power and Light. Law firm Levin Papitonio believed that it was never the interest of the consumers and called on you, the governor, to look into how it happened and ask the Public Service Commission to reopen discussions on rate hike. Do you plan to take action, and what would you say to the folks at home who are concerned about their power bills?
Well, obviously, when you have the prices rising through everything, it's a huge burden on people to be able to see gas bills, energy bills, all this stuff go. My view is, we want to have affordable energy in the state of Florida, and we're committed to doing that, and that's where we're going to be on that. Yes.
I have a question kind of related to this talk today. You hear billions, you hear millions. Obviously, spending is up and money is up to increase the tourism here, especially Gulf Area has an expansion. The TDC is doing new programs. For you, what is your focus to make the increase continue? Is it protect the environment? Is it grow business? Is it more marketing?
Well, I think we're doing a lot of all those. I mean, we've done more on environmental protection and restoration than any governor in the history of the state. And actually, if you look at our restoration efforts, we've done more on restoration than many other states. I don't know that there's other states that have even done what we've done if you've looked at the scale that we're doing. We're working with the legislature to kind of bring that in for a landing going forward because we want to have another good year in that regard. And yes, that's Everglades and South Florida, but it's also water quality, it's springs, it's coastal renourishment, beach renourishment, all these things, resiliency when we have hurricanes. I mean, this part of the state is hurricane prone probably more than any other if you think about it, because anything that goes underneath the Keys it's going to turn north. And the question is, if it turns north quickly, it hits Florida. If it turns north a little later, it'll hit Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. If it doesn't turn north until late, it hits Texas. But it's going to hit someplace. And so you have to build resiliency in the community. So we've been able to do that, put huge amount of that. So I think understanding that we have a unique environment is important. I also think infrastructure writ large. We need to have the ability for people to get around. Roads, bridges, all these things are really important. That's why we're going to fully fund the Florida Department of Transportation work program, which is something that's really, really important. In terms of business, I mean, we have a good environment. I don't have to offer anyone any special deals. They want to be in Florida because they understand, one, they're not going to get shut down. Two, they understand that we have a good business climate. We have low taxes. And I think they have confidence that this is a place that they're going to be able to succeed. So I think you're going to continue to see it keep going. I think part of what happened with our state was because there were so many other parts of the country that may normally be tourism destinations, but you were going into Fauciville if you visited there. You'd have all these restrictions, or you'd have lockdown, you'd have all kind of crazy policies, and I think people didn't want to do that. So instead they came to Florida. And many people, of course, have been to Florida, but I think more people saw more aspects of our state than have ever done that before. And so I think for sure you've seen that in Northwest Florida. And I mentioned, it's hard to find vacation rentals in different parts of Northwest Florida. But you also look at like Sarasota. That airport, I think, has the largest increase in domestic flights in the country, certainly one of the best in the country, and number one in our state. So more people are going there. So I think it's the whole enchilada. But we're going to continue making progress on all the great things that we've been doing so far, and I really believe the best is yet to come. All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate it.